You know that feeling when you're maybe surrounded by family, friends, people you really love, but you still feel profoundly alone.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe when a really close relationship just doesn't pan out the way you'd hoped, the way you expected, and it just leaves you feeling heartbroken.
Oh, absolutely. It's
Yeah.
such a common human thing, isn't it? And yes, so often that struggle really comes down to maybe a misunderstanding about what actually connects us
Right.
and, what real happiness in relationships even looks like. We tend to put this huge pressure on others.
Yeah, like they have to meet our idea of perfect.
Exactly. An impossible burden sometimes.
So today, we're really taking a deep dive into this. It starts with well, a pretty intense personal situation, but it quickly opens up into these bigger truths, doesn't it?
It really does. About connection, our own expectations, and the surprising idea of acceptance, the power it has.
Yeah, so our mission today is kind of unpack why these closest relationships, the ones that should be easiest, sometimes bring the biggest challenges.
And how maybe just a shift in how we look at it, a change in perspective, can honestly transform everything.
Okay, so let's get into this specific scenario we looked at. It's about someone who's really, really deep into their spiritual practice,
Very committed.
super committed,
Yeah.
and they've even brought their spouse along on this journey. So from the outside looking in,
It looks ideal.
totally,
Yeah.
they're active in their spiritual community, serving, doing all the things. And apparently other people really look up to them, almost envious, like, wow, look at them.
Like you said before, couple goals, that kind of vibe.
Exactly. A perfect picture of shared purpose, or so it seems.
But then there's this twist. It comes quite suddenly in the story.
Yeah, it really does.
Despite all that shared stuff, all the outward appearances, this person starts describing this intense internal conflict.
Hmm.
It started when they initially accepted another person, another devotee, showing affection for their husband. They even tried to frame it as a good connection.
Okay. Trying to be spiritually mature about it, maybe?
Perhaps. But over time, just seeing them interact affectionately, whether they were there or not, it just started eating away at them.
Oh, wow.
And that feeling spiraled. It became this deep resentment, anger, aimed right at the husband.
So that good connection idea completely backfired.
Completely. It turned into a major source of pain. Deep pain.
Gosh, that sounds absolutely awful. Like a real emotional roller coaster. You try to do the right thing, the understanding thing, and it just unravels.
Mm-hmm.
And now they feel like their husband isn't behaving properly, that maybe their whole spiritual path, everything they've invested in, is somehow wrong or being challenged.
Yeah, the foundation feels shaken.
And they're so upset, the feeling is just, I want to quit everything. The practice, the community,
Yeah,
maybe even the relationship itself.
it's a breaking point.
So it really makes you ask, right, what does this mean? Was all that effort, all that spiritual practice
Yeah.
just for nothing? A waste of time?
Well, this leads us to a really key insight from the material we're exploring. The core message is pretty direct. It says basically that just showing up, diligently going to services, volunteering like crazy.
Doing all the stuff.
Right. Doing all the external stuff, while maybe good actions in themselves, doesn't automatically mean you get the real teaching, that you've truly internalized it.
Mm.
So this person is wondering, why? Why, after all my effort, after bringing my husband into this, am I suffering so much? They feel like they ticked all the boxes externally.
But the internal result is just pain.
Exactly. Because the real spiritual growth isn't about those outward actions. It's about an inner shift, a transformation in how you see things.
And this is where it gets really interesting, I think,
Yeah.
because the teaching suggests that what they thought was practice maybe wasn't true practice, not in the deepest sense.
Mm-hmm. It uses the term ajonsing,
Right. Ojran.
which means
It points towards more like ordinary, unexamined human behavior, driven by our usual attachments or desires or fears, not necessarily the path to real enlightenment. So even doing spiritual things can just be more of the same human patterns if there isn't that deeper internal shift.
That's the implication. Without that inner transformation, the outer actions might just reinforce those patterns instead of helping us transcend them.
Wow.
So a true understanding isn't about like forcing your partner to join in or creating these separate tracks within the marriage. Like, okay, you do your spiritual thing, I'll do mine.
Right. You go your way, I'll go my way.
Yeah. That might work if you're living alone, sure. If you're single, fine, navigate your own path. But in a partnership, where your lives, your energies are supposed to be intertwined, it gets really problematic.
So the idea is if you're really living together, truly sharing a life, you have to.
Exactly. You have to adjust, make allowances for each other, maybe yield a bit sometimes, find that harmony.
It's not just living side by side, but actively bending towards each other.
Precisely. Because if you're internally separate, even if you're legally married, sharing a house,
Mhm.
the relationship is already kind of like, oh, no.
Strangers.
Yeah, like strangers,
Right.
living these parallel, emotionally disconnected lives. And the teaching says, well, if you act like strangers, if there's that emotional distance, it's almost natural that someone else might come close to your partner.
Because there's space, an opening.
There's emotional space for them to enter.
Yeah.
And here's the really provocative part. The wisdom suggests, kurju, naiga butieo juwatjanya.
Wait, I attached them. What does that mean?
It means the individual, by encouraging the husband's separate path without fostering that true interconnection between them, they kind of inadvertently facilitated the situation.
Oh, wow. That's heavy.
It is. It's seen as the kwabo, the karmic result, the consequence of their own way of handling the relationship. It's a tough pill to swallow, but it points towards understanding cause and effect.
Okay, that is a lot to process. So the guidance then is, Janyo, Padajurusio,
Yeah.
just accept it.
Mm.
But how do you accept something that feels so deeply painful? Like we talked about betrayal. My first reaction, my gut would scream, no way, this is not okay.
And that's totally understandable. But this is where that concept of hyung comes in. It's more than just passive acceptance. It's like genuine acknowledgement.
Okay, yeah. So acknowledgement, how does that help?
Well, the source uses this really powerful, almost jarring analogy. It says, Oya hoyu lanonushi dit hugyu nemot milknun baptan sarameu junika jigum wagananda.
I'm not eating my share of rice, but I'm angry someone else is eating it. Whoa.
Right. It implies this possessiveness over something you're not actually engaging with yourself, or maybe even wanting to engage with fully.
So it's like saying it's mine, but you're not even using it or tending to it.
Kind of. It suggests you're wanting to control something you're not fully invested in. And the teaching implies that's not really love, is it? It's more like a claim of ownership over something you've perhaps neglected.
Oof. Okay, so then if your partner is, let's say, Jonjom Horinanjad, the decent guy, a good person, it's actually natural that other people would see that quality in him too.
That's the perspective shift.
Wait, should you be grateful if someone else is showing him care or affection? Like, oh, thanks for helping out there. Appreciate you stepping in.
Haha. Well, maybe not exactly like that.
Okay, good. Because my internal alarms are just blaring right now.
But the logic behind it is powerful, isn't it? It really does flip the script on conventional thinking about relationships.
It absolutely does. It shifts it from owning someone to appreciating them. Maybe even a kind of compassionate detachment.
That's a good way to put it. And this leads to the idea of true, genuine respect. It's not about being a doormat, not about letting people walk over you.
No, definitely not.
But it's about donjon, but about ono, jonjo, acknowledging and understanding others as they are, without judging them, without trying to force them into your box.
Okay. Acknowledge and understand.
And the source even touches on how we perceive others. Like when someone seems to be
Braggy, superior, boasting.
Yeah, acting boastful or like they know everything.
Yeah.
The teaching suggests often that's just them expressing themselves in their own way from their world. Our perception of it as boasting might actually be our issue.
Stemming from our own stuff, our insecurities.
Exactly. It's our lens, our filter. It's a really striking point about how much we project onto others.
Wow. Okay, so this idea of acceptance, of Janae, it clearly goes way beyond just marriage.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the wisdom then talks about how we handle differences in opinion, even with like our best friends, our family, our ride or dies.
The people closest to us.
And we kind of expect them to think like us, don't we? To agree with us on the important stuff, at least. Like if you disagree with your best friend about a movie, it feels different, maybe more personal than disagreeing with a random person online.
Totally. And that's what the source calls a common chakak, a misconception, a deep one.
A misconception that our loved ones should think like us.
Yeah. The teaching emphasizes. Everyone sees things differently. Everyone. Regardless of how close you are.
But we make it a problem when it's someone close.
We do. We get emotionally spun up about it, whereas with a stranger, we might just go, okay, different view, and move on.
So it's not that our friend or family member is being Heilish.
Peculiar. Unusually different.
Right. It's not them being weird. It's our expectation that they shouldn't be different that actually creates the conflict.
Exactly. We're basically fighting our own internal rule book, not their actual opinion.
Okay, and here's another angle that really grabbed me. The source explains that while Hecodactyrium just being different isn't the same as colon being wrong.
Difference isn't wrongness. A crucial distinction.
Right. But our emotions are,
Well,
let me see, Carmack calls it, our karmic patterns, those deep habits.
those unconscious drivers of our reactions.
Yeah. Those often dull, Okyhadril, one hand and Maria. They just want agreement. They crave harmony.
They resist difference.
And that's why we feel stressed or annoyed or defensive when opinions clash. Even if intellectually we know it's okay for people to think differently, it's that inner conditioning, that craving for sameness, causing the friction.
Indeed. So the advice isn't convince them you're right. It's let it go.
Don't force agreement.
Don't force it. If someone says you're wrong or you're being stubborn, the key is to just accept that. Well, that's their opinion of you in that moment.
It's their perspective. It reflects them, not necessarily objective truth about me.
Precisely. It's their truth, and you don't have to absorb it or fight it. The source even uses the example of trying to intervene in long-standing family issues, like parents who always fight.
Oh yeah, trying to be the fixer.
Right. We mean well, but trying to change them often just leads to us getting resentful when they inevitably don't change, right?
Yeah, because they probably won't or not on our timeline.
And then it damages our relationship with them. The advice is instead, give them freedom. Let them navigate their own stuff, their own karma.
And
Paradoxically, stepping back, giving them that space, can actually make them more Hyoja, more filial, more respectful towards you, because you're not trying to control them. It's powerful stuff about non-interference.
Okay. It's a lot. But honestly, hearing it laid out like this, it just clicks.
Yeah.
You know, it makes so much sense.
Mm-hmm.
But then comes the big question. How do you actually do this in the messy reality of everyday life? Because, let's be real, right.
Walk out the door, life hits you, and you go right back to your old ways.
Exactly. You have the intention, you understand it intellectually, but then someone cuts you off in traffic, or your boss says something, or your partner leaves the dishes out again, and boom, all that wisdom just evaporates.
It's the classic knowing-doing gap, isn't it? So how do we make this understanding stick? How do we integrate it?
Yeah.
The source really emphasizes the need for what it calls your second shogaron jagop.
A returning process.
Yeah, like a continuous, diligent process of self-reflection, of recentering, coming back to this understanding again and again. It's about chagarduri the brun, charago chamio hanian chalachala suheng.
Moment to moment. Awareness and self-correction.
Yeah.
Catching yourself.
Exactly. Catching yourself in those fleeting moments before you react out of those old habits. Pausing. Choosing a different response based on this deeper understanding.
So it's not just about setting aside an hour for meditation or something formal like that. This idea of udoki, suing jonjin, continuous practice.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it needs to be woven into like every minute of the day.
That's the ideal, yes. A 247 practice, in a sense.
Wow, that sounds exhausting.
Well, maybe not constantly active practice, but a constant potential for practice. And yes, we'll miss moments. A lot of them, probably.
Okay, that's reassuring.
But the key is to regularly check back in. Maybe dedicate some time each day, even just an hour like the source suggests, to consciously reflect.
Like review the day.
Yeah, review the day. Think about interactions that triggered you. Where did you feel that resistance, that anger, that judgment? Journaling can help, or just sitting quietly and replaying those moments without judgment, just observing your reaction.
Okay. Consistent self-assessment.
Exactly. And doing it with a sense of remorse for when we fall short, but also a real commitment to try again, to change. That consistent effort, the source says, can lead to gijo.
Miracles.
Really? Yeah. That's the word used. Miracles. It even goes incredibly far, suggesting that this kind of deep internal practice can escalate. Ooh, change past karma. Even change your destiny or fortune. That's the claim. It's a profound statement about the power of our present moment awareness and choices. The idea is, by truly accepting and understanding others, letting them be, we're actually fundamentally helping ourselves.
We're freeing ourselves.
We're freeing ourselves from the suffering that comes from our own expectations, our own resistance, our own judgments.
So wrapping this up then, what's the big takeaway for us right now? What does this all mean?
Well, I think this deep dive really shows that finding that true connection, that real inner peace, it's not about trying to control other people.
Or forcing them to agree with us.
Exactly. It's actually found in this pretty radical act of Bria, that genuine acceptance.
Accepting others just as they are.
And, crucially, accepting our own perceptions, our own emotional reactions to them, without necessarily acting them out destructively.
It feels like that journey, understanding differences, acknowledging them instead of fighting them, that's the real practice, isn't it?
It absolutely is. It's not just about smoothing over external relationships. It's a path to freedom. Freedom from our own internal battles, the prisons we build with our expectations, getting beyond the limits of our own views.
Yeah, it's a truly fascinating and honestly quite liberating perspective we've unpacked today. So maybe for you, the listener, just consider this. Is there a relationship in your life right now? Maybe one that's causing some friction, some stress, some pain. What if? What if you tried shifting your own expectations just a little? Practicing that genuine acceptance, that dear we talked about, could that unlock something, maybe even a small miracle? What might it look like to just acknowledge what is, both in them and in your reaction, instead of constantly pushing against it, trying to force it to be what you wish it was?